funding seems to have dried up.
Funding.
There was a big push, about a month ago or so, or two. Everybody can fly for 2 sorties, proficiency flying, and some proficiency flight in this month, and they ran out of money.
Who?
So this week is the end of the fiscal year, so it starts all over again October 1st. Hopefully they'll get new mission numbers out there, and then we can fly it again next week. So
Alright.
I just signed off a whole bunch of discrepancies, little nitpicky things like chains missing off the fuel tank,
Oh, nice.
and seat, loose, that type of thing. So there's the PFD. Right now, I've noticed that when you have this, when you're shutting down, you still have the standby battery switch on. If you turn all the power, the avionics off, then you turn the battery off, the PFD goes dead. And then it starts back up because the standby battery switch is on. Okay, it's supposed to stay on.
It's supposed to, cut off.
It's supposed to stay on. So that's part of the write-up, and the other is people have thought that this thing isn't bright enough. I personally don't see that, but others have noted. So anyway, a PFD screen is in the works on when we get one, and probably during the 100-hour, about that time we'll try to replace that. And then there's still a write-up with the camera cable to the GPS is apparently broke or crimped or something. I have not looked into that yet on how to fix it.
What's the camera?
It's part of the mission for auto photography.
Okay, very good.
It's a case inside the plane that gets carried with it everywhere it goes to take pictures.
Oh, so you plug in the handheld camera to the aircraft?
There's a GPS suction mount that goes from the cable from this little box to the camera, and it puts metadata into the picture so that it helps whoever's analyzing those pictures to know exactly where that picture was taken. So right now, our plane is not fully mission capable because the camera that I just described.
Is it flagged as partial in the system?
Partial,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's the suction mount GPS and not the aircraft's GPS that's going into the camera?
Correct.
Very good, thank you. And that's 437 Charlie Papa?
No, we don't have 4.3
Yeah.
anymore. This is 7.3, it's a 182.
And
It's
that's,
in the hangar.
oh, that's, okay.
And they were gonna take it Wednesday, but again, they ran out of money, and there was no point on taking away from here to go flying in Palm Springs if they have no money to fly missions.
Monies.
So I'm not sure, when the next time they're gonna take it.
Interesting.
Is there anything on 437 Charlie Papa coming back?
Nope.
Probably won't happen until
Nope.
there's a change in wing commander.
Yeah. So you go.
As far as funding is concerned, even though October 1st starts it, they've got to wait till Congress has a budget approved. So there may be some delays in flying in October for Civil Air Patrol because they haven't got their budget from the Air Force, and the Air Force won't have it from Congress yet.
And there could be
Yeah, I
a
hear that
shutdown.
they're shutting down this weekend too, aren't they?
Not if we get a continuing resolution, we won't shut down.
Then they won't shut down.
Hopefully not.
Well, being a government contractor, I know continuing resolutions didn't mean shit because you didn't get any money.
That's
Right? There was no money coming your way
Yep.
until they got real money. We had to put up our own, I won't go there. Never mind.
Anything else for the plane, or?
So that's about it for the plane. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. one thing I'll do is a little conversation about aerospace. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Well, well, I know you guys know. There's the Jaeger program, the Jaeger Award, for senior members and cadets, but primarily for seniors. Part of the aerospace program is the Jaeger Award, and the Jaeger Award really deals with our aerospace knowledge. So I think all of us, all of us.
How many have taken it?
Yeah. It's like not many.
Bob, you've taken it, right?
Yeah, he has
Never
it.
have. I started, never got to it.
So we call it the Jaeger Award, but really is there's a book, and you can find it. I can find it for you because I've downloaded it because it's hard to find in some cases. But it's a book called The Journey of Flight. Every cadet's actually expected to know it. Every senior, usually to get to level 2, you need to have it completed. It's a pretty easy read. It's a historical lesson of just flight in general, from before the Wright brothers all the way up to space travel today. Brief little quiz, like if you've taken any of the training and access, it's pretty much the same of how you take that test. It's open book, so it's not like you have to memorize this thick book of stuff. I think the previous aerospace officer used to go through, like every aerospace week, would go through a chapter or two. I thought of that. It's pretty dry. You might want to do it on your own time as well. I'm not a teacher, so I don't know how to make it fun. But it's literally, when I did it, I was just like, man, I gotta check this box, because I think it comes in pieces, parts, and then I just grabbed the one big download and it's one big PDF file. They used to be a giant book. I'm sure the Squadron has one somewhere, but it's a giant book somewhere. But grab the PDF or grab one of the parts, read through it. It's a good read, but it's also one of those things that we do want to push, because as senior members, like this is a senior squadron, we're senior members, but we will be around cadets, and it just kind of helps to have some of that just aerospace knowledge, aerospace experience. Again, a lot of us are pilots, so that's part of it, but just the depth of how we got here. And I think even, I was in the Air Force, I'm a pilot, all of those things, I still learned a bunch reading through The Journey of Flight. So that's my little pitch for aerospace. It is part of our program. You should take a look at it if you want, or at all curious or interested. I can get you a copy of it. It's free. It's no big deal. It's a bit of material, but it's not like a horrible read. So I'll just say that it's got a lot of pictures in it too. Kind of freak stuff. Let's see. I think what other new? It's funny because I'm running through my head to think of if there's anything I want to get to before the video. I don't think so. Anybody going to the air show next the weekend? Huntington Beach? No?
Beach.
I guess I'm the only one. Yeah. It's a matter of work for me, so I'm going like Friday and Saturday. I've never been to the Huntington Beach Air Show, so I'm kind of excited. I also haven't been to an air show since I've been a certificated pilot, so I think it'll have a different. I'll be looking at things a little bit different.
How does it work with no airport?
Where's
no
on the
airport?
beach?
Huh?
Yeah. it's on the
They
beach.
fly up and down the beach.
Up and down the beach,
Yeah.
right at near the pier.
You're asking the wrong guy. I haven't
Okay.
been to it. I have heard a lot of strange stories about people flying around near El Toro, having strange ADS-B contacts closing at 400 knots on them and getting freaked out. Thought that was pretty funny, because obviously they have to practice and get ready for the fun. But I'll be there roaming around, not in a civil air patrol capacity. I know they sent out a bunch of requests earlier on for people in civil air patrol who wanted to help, or man the booth, or help with security. But I think all those spots are filled. But hopefully it's not blazing hot. But it is on the beach, so it shouldn't be too awful.
I can add about 3 more minutes
Hmm?
of conversation.
3 more minutes.
That to me.
Excellent.
So I was able to fly an emergency procedures.
Oh, you did that?
flight last week with Terry Pratt.
Ah,
It was very interesting and I learned a lot. I'll say that it's worth every pilot to go through that training when they have a chance to do that.
did you do the impossible turn?
Well, I don't know how impossible. I mean, you're up in the air.
Yeah.
I can do it. I think that my drop was about 500-600 feet. So doing a 180, and the bad thing that I was noted on doing those was that I was pulling back on the yoke. And
Loading
that's
the
the
wing.
worst thing you can do
Yep.
when you're, trying to recover from
Yeah.
an engine out and trying to get back around to the airport. And so I was not consciously doing it, but the second time that we did that, Terry was pointing that out, and I tried to, let go. So yeah, about 500-600 feet, and I did that once by myself, and I thought it was more like about the same for 500 feet. So I got a benchmark on, where, if I go straight in, I've always said 700 feet is my personal decision point
Yeah.
on being able to turn around or go straight in. So that was one interesting thing. We did some, turns and cloud type thing, and the other interesting thing I learned is that you can take all the power out of the plane and put your elevator trim all the way back, and you'll just float down at the best glide speed. So it's about between 70-75. You just kind of just like a potato chip. I was really shocked. I thought
Good thing for instrument conditions when you've lost an engine.
Yeah, he said like in clouds or whatever, and you lose the engine. That's the best thing that you can do is put it into that, and you'll just you glide sleep. Even if you're just trying to find a place or whatever, that's the best glide. I've always just kept it at 76 knots without even trimming it to that. But if you just all the power out and the elevator trim all the way back, then it will just sit there and float.
Yeah, so probably being the most recent initial training pilot in here, my CFI was very strong on making sure that if you adjust the pitch as soon as you can, because it gives you more time to focus on the other emergency procedures, so you're not having to focus so much on your back pressure, figuring out glide. It's like she had me adjust trim for glide, and then as I'm doing the rest of the procedures. So,
What was your maximum angle of bank on the return to airport?
65. No, I'm sorry.
That can't be right.
45.
Yeah, I was like, that can't be right.
Yeah. But so another one that was kind of scary is I've never gone 180 knots, down, simulating a fire in the cockpit, and so boom, got a fire. What's going on? And you go through this the emergency checklist. Where the hell is it? You got to pull it out and go through, simulate, all this stuff turning off, and fire's not out, right? And pull the, fire extinguisher and all that, and so that's part of the training, right?
Mhm.
And that's get down as fast as you can, and so I think we only got up to like 150 knots going
And
down.
I was very lucky. My DPE was very on to that one, and gave me that right after the first couple waypoints in my nav log. And it was funny because he was getting ready to yell at me, but I had actually read the POH. The POH was very specific on at least the Cessna 172 that I had my check right in. It's a pitch down for 100 knots first in a corkscrew, and if that does not extinguish the fire, pitch down further for 120 knots, or max speed, or max calm airspeed, right? And it was funny because at first I was like 100 knots, and he's like, that's all you got? I'm like, the POA says, no, that's until the fire's out. And he said, all right, fire's not out. All right. And I went down, and he was like very good. He's like, can you show me that in the POH? I showed him that. So it's very interesting. It is the only time you get to do
Was that the first one or
that.
the second one?
What's that?
Was that on your first check
Second,
ride?
second.
Then he got you anyway.
Oh yeah. He got me all, but so same thing about wing loading. Also, secondary stalls, or sorry, accelerated stalls. Um, he tested me on an accelerated stall, even though it's not really part of the ACS. So that was kind of an interesting little, thankfully I trained on it, but he had me go into a power off stall in a bank and prevent, obviously recover and prevent a spin. So, since he wanted to give me hard mode the second time. But it's good to know the emergency training is good because, I don't even think I've tried that in the simulator. Come back to the runway or where am I comfortable with it? And I'm sure it doesn't feel great in the aircraft.
I don't know. Actually, I was pretty comfortable with that.
Alright.
I mean, really.
What was your sink rate? Recall?
Well, the time it took me to do a 180, I dropped, like I said, 600 feet.
So.
And I was trying to keep it at 80 knots. I mean, we started off at 80 knots, I'll put it that way. And then, I don't think I got too much slower than that. I might have got down to 70, but I kept the airspeed up.
Isn't it like a 230-degree turn ultimately when you get realigned?
Well, the procedures say turn 230 or 220 and then 30 degrees back. Does that sound right? To line up to the 180.
Yeah. So it's more than 180.
Why do you do that? I mean, why do you overshoot and then come back?
Because you're almost certainly going to overshoot on your turn radius, aren't you?
I don't know. I usually roll out where I want to.
If you got a fire,
This isn't the.
No,
fire,
this is not- this
just,
is,
if you turn the
engine
in and
failure
out
on takeoff.
oh, I was speaking of on the fire when you increased your airspeed.
Well, I didn't do that one that well. Terry actually had to show me, how to quickly get down. I don't know. I was a little shy of putting it into 150 knot drop.
I think that was the most fun I've had in the plane so far. Is fire, simulated fire.
Yeah, and it was like about a 45-degree bank on that too.
So if you keep it clean, you can increase the speed. You just don't wanna put the flaps out because then it'll warp them. And that's the problem. Now with the Bonanza, at 154 knots, it's geared down, full flaps, and you just push it over. You can get about 5,500 feet per minute out of it. Yeah, but it's designed that way.
We put flaps in.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get 5,500 feet up.
Well, I think they would go down faster if you didn't have flaps in them.
Well, isn't the high speed to blow the fire out?
Yes. So, emergency procedures are good, huh?
That's all I got.
Okay. Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, we got to practice all that stuff in the new plane. I was kind of curious when I started doing my complex as well, and it's interesting the aerodynamics when you have gear like retractable gear like that. That thing drags, and definitely going from the Cessna to an Aero, man, you just do not have a lot of time when the engine's out. Like I'm used to set glide, and I've got all the time in the world to troubleshoot, declare emergencies, all this neat stuff. We pulled the power, in the Aero, put the gear out, and it was like 30 seconds, and we're like, okay, I mean, you got to put power back in and climb out. So that was kind of interesting for me to learn, especially heavier aircraft. And again, I'm relatively new, so a lot of it's kind of neat to learn the differences with all these different aircraft. The aircraft that I bought, the 235, went flying in that this weekend. And yeah, the seller has a very interesting landing procedure, which I will not be doing. But he I mean, it comes down quickly, so that's wonderful. But you know, he blows out the oleo shocks. At least they're my oleo shocks now. So he blows those out every time he lands because it just lands really firm. Because he goes full power out, and it's like even I know, like with a six-cylinder aircraft, you know, little bit of power, you know, to soften the flare, and you know, he does a couple weird things. He like uh, once he's over runway end, um, that's when he applies full flaps and dumps throttle, and then you know, and brings it down. And I was like, whole time I'm sitting there, I'm like, I was like, this is my plane now. Don't do that. But yeah, I'm used to getting a good stabilized descent early with power, and you know, I have my power set and my landing configuration set, and still have my 5 to 600 degree or feet per minute downward, so that all I need to do is a little more power out and a little more nose up and soften it. Like that's the way that I've been trained to fly complex aircraft. And he was like chopping and dropping it. I was like, dude, this isn't a Cessna, man. So
You end up, when you do the landing that you just experienced, you're doing 3 point.
well, yeah, he's a gust.
And-
He's afraid of gusts. That was his. I asked him, how do you do that? He said, oh, it's gusty. And I'm like,
Like, so what?
yeah, that's the way I was trained. I would like just deal with the gust, like
You
use your
still
rudder.
gotta flare it when you come down. I don't care
Yeah.
if you're power on or power off.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and he's hard on the brakes, and it's funny because everything my DPE told me was coming back. Like it was all like I was the DPE sitting next to him, and I was just like, dude, like, I mean, he's coming down, you know, hitting pretty hard. Afraid of the gusts because that's why he wanted less flaps on his stabilized approach, and then hard braking as if this was short field. Whereas this was Santa Barbara, like it's a big, wide, long runway, and he's on the brakes really hard. And I was like, dude, those are my brakes now. I don't want to pay for new brakes. Like, come on. So
Here's something for our next check ride. If someone wants to do the hard braking, in a DC-10 at 130 knots, 35 knots on touchdown, if you apply brakes then versus waiting till it gets to 120 or below, 25% more brake wear. That's a lot. 25%.
and don't you have it's not the big guys. You have like prerequisite or required cool down periods for the brakes after you hard brake like that.
Only after you board, because you're applying heavy braking.
Jeez.
And
Well.
you got 6 plates. I'm trying to remember what a DC-10 had. So they had 6 plates for the braking system. So you got 6 lined up plates with pucks, and they all squished together. So you have max braking. You burn the tires off if you really want to.
Yep.
Don't you have reverse thrust?
You do. You do have reverse thrust, but you still are using the brakes for max braking. Because you want to abort, you don't want to run off the runway.
Oh, that's it. It's an abort that we're talking about.
And it requires, if you're at certain speeds, it may be 20 minutes.
Okay. So
Then you take off and let them drag for a while to make sure they're cool.
Well, if you aborted, you probably don't want to take off anyway because of the reason you aborted, right?
Well, it all depends on what the abort was for.
Depends on what the abort was for. All right, let me try to get the screen stuff going. Huh. Ready? And let's get this going on Teams. Can I do both? All right. Dave, can you tell if I'm broadcasting correctly?
Are you running? Is that an iPad?
This is an iPad.
So you're not connecting to the Apple TV?
Yeah, because I can't see it.
Yeah, because that's why I can't see it. Is when you're not looking at the
Now
Apple
you're
TV.
loading.
So you can't see either? See, like, only thing is I see is that if I go here. Oh, now it pops up. Of course. See, you need to be. It's a standard IT thing. You need to you need to come over here and
They
stand
did a
next
little
to me.
clicker.
Yeah, just come stand next to me. That's it. Is it? Hmm. Says it is. It is not. Yeah, it seems to just play it local. See? Because if I go here, here, see how it's already selected?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
Your
You know
input.
what? That's one.
There we go.
Is it HDMI one? Sorry, guys.
Hit it again.
Not okay. But it's not. Still not doing it though. What is a weird wrong with phone? Alright. You know what? I wonder if I can't broadcast the teams at the same time.
Oh,
I think that's what it is. Is that the problem?
probably.
Oh, no? Hmm. Let's try this again. Well, this is interesting. So when it, what happened? Like you're only trapping it from the Apple TV? Okay. Alright, let's try this little mess then. I'm gonna jump.
I can read the video from my phone.
I'm gonna try to jump out of teams. Technical difficulties, everyone. Stand by. Well, let's see. We do it. We have the technology. See, this is the weird part. See, like it just doesn't
It's
come.
not
It
showing
doesn't come up
anything.
right away, and then when it does show, it just like it doesn't do anything. And I'm on this network. Hmm. That is weird. Hmm. Why is that happening? Things are going so well. Yeah, I don't see. I mean, it's got to be Teams that's interfering with it. That's my guess. I mean, it has to be, right?
Yeah, I'm mirroring myself from that call.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really weird. Let me see. What if I just do standard mirroring? See, that's even weirder. See, like if I just do basic mirroring,
Yeah.
it won't go. Huh. But it's got to be Teams. That's my thought. But technical difficulties. Stand by.
Social Flight Live.
Huh. Oh. Okay. Hey, there we go. There. Sorry about that.
Welcome to Social Flight Live. We have a fantastic show for you this evening. Colonel Nicole Malachowski is here with us, United States Air Force retired and the first female Thunderbirds pilot. Before we get started, just a few notes. Be sure to check out socialflight.com and the free Social Flight mobile apps for Apple and Android devices. That is where so many events, in addition to tonight's program, can be found, as well as great places to fly, things to do, $100 hamburgers, and of course, the Fly to Win Challenge, which is happening right now and is an ongoing thing with different prizes in different prize periods. All you need to do is have the mobile app, go fly, or just go visit any airport you're checked in. You'll get at least one entry into the event. And our current prize is from Tempest Aero. It's a complete prize pack from this great company with all of these fantastic products for your aircraft and your engine. So be sure to check that out. In addition, you can post questions in our Q&A section here on the show. And although we do not ask those questions directly, we'll be able to keep an eye on that. And if we're able to fit them into the program, I'll be sure to do that for you. So without any further ado, I'd like to start by kind of explaining something. You know, this program, every time that we have to go and create a title and a listing and a graphic for a show, it really creates an interesting conundrum with what it is you list for someone. And this show tonight challenged me probably more than anything. When to simply have one line to write and be able to sit there and simply say the first female Thunderbirds pilot simply does not do Colonel Nicole Malachowski's world justice. All of her accomplishments, so many things. When Colonel Malachowski was in middle school, women were prohibited from becoming fighter pilots. Against these odds, she joins us today as a combat veteran who piloted the amazing F-15E Strike Eagle in multiple war zones. She rose to become a flight commander, an instructor, a flight lead, and has more than 2,300 hours in 6 different Air Force aircraft. She also served as a White House Fellow and was the first female pilot with the famous United States Air Force Thunderbirds demonstration team, which of course ended up being the one line that brought you here this evening. I'm going to bring her online now. She is retired now due to medical reasons from 2017, and since that time has transformed her life's work into helping others face similar life challenges. It is my great honor to welcome Colonel Nicole Malachowski. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you, and welcome to the basement of my house in Colorado.
Well, for basement, let me just start by saying that's one good set you've got behind you. If this is your basement, I can't imagine what the rest is like.
Well, thank you very much. What I didn't tell you is that I'm actually in the corner of my kids' playroom surrounded by Legos and dollhouses. So
that makes it even better. I like that even. You know, we started both Social Flight to support all people, all pilots within general aviation, and then of course this show to bring inspirational people together and into everyone's kind of living room or office on a Tuesday evening during some very challenging times. You embody this more than anyone I know. I would love to hear a little bit about your story and how you got started from just being a little girl without maybe any exposure yet to aviation to the cockpit of a Strike Eagle and beyond.
Yeah, I actually can remember like the very moment that I decided, I want to be a fighter pilot when I grow up. I was about 5 years old, give or take, about 1979. So now everybody knows, of course, my age. And my family went to the local air show, a lot like most, families, do when the air show comes to town. And I remember being just mesmerized by the aircraft, but it was the moment that an F-4 Phantom came by. And I remember the F-4 Phantom came right over the runway, extremely low, and my whole body, like my chest rumbled, right? I had to cover my ears because it was so loud. And I remember I could smell the jet fuel, and the F4 had a little bit of that gray smoke, black smoke coming out the back of the engine. And I just started shaking. You know how kids get like super excited, like they can't control themselves? Like that was me. And I remember like looking at that and thinking, that's what I'm gonna do someday. I'm gonna fly the F4 Phantom. And you combine that with the fact that I came from a family where both of my grandfathers had served in the military, so I knew like military service was honorable and noble and good. When you put that together with that F4 Phantom that day, it was done.
And how old were you at that point?
I was about 5. Yes, I'm very lucky, and I honestly became maniacally focused on becoming a fighter pilot to the point that I'm just really glad it worked out because I didn't have a backup plan at all.
So how did that evolve? Did you get any exposure to aviation aside from that before you joined the military, or what? Take us through that part.
Indeed. So I let, family and friends know that this was my goal and my dream. Now, of course, at that young age, I had no idea that it was against congressional law, and I'm not sure that it would have mattered, right, to a little kid who had a big dream. But by telling family and friends, sometimes opportunities would come around. I remember my grandfather's friend had a Piper, and it's a Cherokee. I can't even remember which type of aircraft, but it was a Piper. And I remember we got into it when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, and he let me fly around the pattern with him. He let me, pretend like I was taking off and all of that good stuff. So a lot of those little things. But one of the biggest things that I think helped keep me focused was when I turned 12 years old, I joined the Civil Air Patrol. I am a huge advocate of the Civil Air Patrol, especially their cadet programs. Because I was able to focus on aviation, right, and learn about the history of aviation. I was learning about teamwork and leadership. I was building the self-confidence I would need, to someday take the controls of an aircraft and go solo. So I give a lot of credit to the Civil Air Patrol for surrounding me with kind of like-minded people, and I think surrounding me with people who believed in my dream as much as I did.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
so from Civil Air Patrol, I guess I don't know how long you want me to go in my life story here, but like I went into high school and I joined Air Force Junior ROTC. And that also, right, was extraordinarily, formative for me in helping keep me focused in those years where I think it's easy for young kids and teenagers to kind of get unfocused. So it kept me on track. During that time in high school, the Civil Air Patrol, the Nevada wing of the Civil Air Patrol, actually afforded me a flying scholarship, which paid for all of my flying lessons through my solo, which I did just after my 16th birthday. Stay focused on becoming a pilot. I knew I needed a college degree. I knew I needed to be commissioned as an officer to become a military pilot. And so I set my sights really young, like in 7th grade on the Air Force Academy. In fact, I remember writing to the Air Force Academy admissions office when I was like 12 or 13. And they wrote back and they're like, yeah, it's a little early right now, but here's all the pamphlets, so you can plan ahead. And then off to the Air Force Academy, and of course the rest is history.
Wow. So now, were you always focused? I know you mentioned military service in your family. Was the Air Force the target all along when it came to the branches of the military?
Interestingly, both of my grandfathers were actually in the Navy. My father had served in the Army. But I was looking at it very logically, like which service has the most pilots and where can I go that has the highest chance of flying military aircraft? Because the actual branch of service wasn't as important as wearing my nation's uniform and serving, right? I could do that in any branch of service. Now the next question is, where are my chances highest of being able to actually get a pilot slot and make that happen? So that's where the Air Force came into it.
Now, when was it that it became, why don't you fill me in and our viewers in on when the legislation changed and the rules changed for both the ability to fly versus the ability to fly in combat? How did that fit into your progression along the way?
I kind of feel like my life is kind of always like paralleled, right? The changes in the laws and everything. everything. And I tell people, you know, that I am the product of timing, luck, and circumstance. I'm not special by any means. I just was born at the right time in the right country and was afforded these opportunities. You know, I mean, even in 1979, right, when I was at that air show, that was basically the first year, give or take, that they opened up pilot training to the Air Force for women, opened that up to women, right?
Wow.
And as I was graduating high school and in my first year at the Air Force Academy, so kind of that 1992 to 1993 is when Congress finally lifted the ban on women flying as fighter pilots. So I got to be part of that first tranche of women that flew modern fighter aircraft, not because I was better than anybody else, but because I was born at the right time.
Wow. And what was it like in the academy and getting into the academy? That is in itself. You could have a whole show just on that accomplishment.
You could. I mean, getting into any military academy is certainly something special. Not a lot of people have the opportunity to do that. The application process is quite grueling, I think, especially in comparison to other colleges and universities. But remember, I am someone who can get kind of obsessed and focused. And in seventh grade, I decided I was going to go to the Air Force Academy. So that was my target, you know, and I worked from the target backwards. What are the things that I need to do to make this happen? So participating in things like civil air patrol and junior ROTC, working hard to make sure that my grades, you know, were good, making sure that I did things like community service, you know, to get in. It's hard for me to even like ever explain that 4-year experience. I don't think you can unless you've gone through it. The first year is extraordinarily tiring, extraordinarily difficult. It's a very like demanding thing on you mentally. Especially, I was 17 when I went to the Air Force Academy. You know, when you're 17, 18, 19 years old and you're in that constant military environment, it's hard. It takes focus and grit and commitment and a lot of help and support from all the other people, right, that are going through that adventure alongside of you. But like anything else that's difficult, right, it gets easier as it goes along. You become more acclimated. They lighten up on kind of restrictions and stuff. And by the time you're a senior, it starts to feel a little like a normal college. Now, this is funny. I actually live in Monument, Colorado, and from my back porch, you can see the Air Force Academy. And in the morning and at night, I can hear reveille and I can hear retreat, and I think of those cadets, and I'm just so proud of them, and I'm so excited for them. So the Academy is 100% I recommend it. It's hard. It's totally worth it. And I worked from the target backwards. It helped me get to where I was going.
That's amazing. Do you go back there and visit since it's so close?
You know what's interesting? I moved here like right before the pandemic started, so it's been a little bit closed down. I'm lucky to say that they do reach out every now and again for the little events, and my kids are super excited because local families are able to sponsor a cadet. And so at some point in the near future, we'll probably put our name in the hat, and hopefully they'll pick us, and we'll be able to sponsor a cadet. I remember my sponsored family when I was a cadet, the Ross family, Sue and Dave Ross. In fact, they still live here just down the street, and how they've been a part of my life ever since I was 17 and 18. Both of them retired Air Force, both of them pilots, both of them people who mentored me all along my career. They're like second parents to me.
Wow. I've never actually heard of the sponsorship program. That's fascinating.
It is. I'm excited to get a cadet, but it also makes me feel really old. You know, like there's more families that apply than there are cadets, so like I'm like nervous. I'm like, gosh, like what do I have to do to get picked?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe take a picture of this with your backdrop.
It's an extraordinary institution, and it's just an honor and a privilege for anybody that has a chance to go there. And I'm very lucky to be an alumni for sure.
Wow. Now, where was your first placement coming out?
Yeah, my first placement was pilot training, which actually ended up being at Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi. Back then, it was about a 12-month-long program, and I flew the T-37 for the first half, which is now only an aircraft on a stick in museums. So I'm definitely old, but I always tell people I flew the T-37 Tweet. That's what it's called, the Tweet. I tell them that's like the original tweet before Twitter was even invented, okay? And then I went on to fly the T-38 for about the second half of my time there. And then after that, graduated and was able to find my way to the cockpit of an F-15E.
We've had a few different show guests come out of different branches of the military or astronauts, etc. The T-38 seems to be what everyone wants to talk about all the time in their training.
Well, it's a heck of a lot of fun, right? I mean, it's the first time. I mean, the T-37 is a jet, right? You know, it's a jet. But the first time you take off in a T-38, and you're a young lieutenant whose dreams have been probably since you were 5, like me, and all of a sudden you light the afterburner, and you can feel that kind of kick in the seat as you accelerate down the runway at a speed you've never done before. And I remember thinking to myself that first time, like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, I'm not sure, like, I'll ever be able to think this fast. I'm not sure I'll ever be able to stay, with the jet. I mean, going from flying, I flew a T3 Sling V at the Air Force Academy and gliders. Love gliders. We can talk about that too. So gliders and T3 prop aircraft. Then we went to the T-37. It's like a evolutionary leap when you get into that T-38. You're flying around the pattern and you're like, I don't even know when to put my gear down. Like, this is happening way too fast. So, but it's also fun, right? It's a very agile aircraft. You get to go supersonic for the first time, so these memories, kind of get etched in with the kind of love of that T-38. It's also, I believe, pretty unforgiving in the final turn. So you have to really be focused on just the finesse of that final turn. So it teaches you to really feel the aircraft, as opposed to relying on all the gauges and stuff. Like, you start to really feel in the T-38. That's my opinion.
Fascinating. Now, during that time period, is that when people are being selected for different types, whether they're going to be flying, anything from a C5 Galaxy or Orion all the way to, the F-15 that you wound up in?
Yeah.
What?
I said helicopters, right?
Okay.
Think about the amazing mission of the helicopter pilots, whether it's combat search and rescue or, medevac, all those amazing things. People forget about that in the Air Force. So the selection process nowadays is very different than what I went through. So I'm going to talk about what I went through back in 1997. We had that 12-month-long program, and everything is graded, right? Your academics, your leadership, your daily flights, your simulator flights, your flying tests and flying. Chance to do what's called track select. You can either track select towards fighter aircraft, fighter attack, and bombers, or you can track select towards, cargo,
lot more to the story than you think. I mean, she's a fighter pilot, it's cool. Talking about combat and things like that, being the first female in combat, or one of the first female in combat. You also get into her time as a Thunderbird, and what today is you heard him allude to the fact that she's medical dad. So, you know, it's a very interesting story, and like I said, you can tell, you know, she's a very engaging speaker. But you know, we can kind of play this out over some aerospace, you know, nights, because you know, we'll break from the normal. We just argue about civil truck stuff. But that's Colonel Malachowski, I believe. And that's, I mean, that's all I've got for tonight. Questions, comments, you know, anything boring, not boring?
When is she medical out from?
I'm not gonna ruin it. I want you to come and watch. It's actually a very heartbreaking story. But because I remember, because when I first saw this, you're like, oh yeah, and she's all chipper and everything. And then when you hear what happened, it's like, well, this is like the most awful thing that could happen to any combat veteran pilot. So it is bad. Yeah. Anything else? Anything? You ready for October? Go to the air show? But yeah, I think that's about it, guys.
All right.
I've got nothing else.
Bravo.
Good job.
You know, just trying to break it up a little bit. I know, everybody, you guys are getting the fat side. Sorry. All right. Well, thank you. Have a good one. Yeah, like I said, when I first saw this one, it was a very, very inspiring story, and the little tie-in to Civil Air Patrol. That was kind of unexpected when I first saw it.